The tournament had a 12-minute time limit.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God.
This came out of your all that concentration. I don't know about your one.
If anything will smack your leg with that.
Obsessed, I don't know.
I was the man in the second. Simple after like, you got to staff council member, second motion. I was like,
She was
Very much.
oh yeah.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
I pulled in, I ended up next to you, Billy, on the road, pulled in the back lane, I started parking, and I was like, oh, there's a spot right there.
Jenna has a cool time when she's on TV at Parks and Rec. I guess she said something. You have that too, is Wes Adams? He's still on TV, man.
She has a so hard to come down for this.
There she goes.
Well, you throw your timer up, when we get to that part.
Probably made better targets. This is pretty sad. Staff here.
Hey DJ, hey DJ, the one thing you do is start on time. Just saying.
All right.
I've been waiting on that.
Have you? All right, who we have here? Emily? Just a green fitty, yeah, all of us.
Yeah, I mean,
Good?
not a big point score.
Good, all right. Guys, at 6:30, we're going to get the work session started. Tonight, the only agenda item we have is the audit presentation by Green Finney Corporation. The floor is yours, my man.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jay Ashworth. I'm a manager in the Charleston office with Green Finney, and we're just here to kind of go through the results of the prior year audit. So, just keep going with that. I'm just going to start off real quick with the city's responsibility. The city is responsible for the financial statements, for all of the numbers that are included in it. It's also responsible for maintaining internal controls and having good systems and procedures to make sure that everything is reported properly throughout the year. That way, as you're looking at monthly statements and everything when you're making your decisions, before the end of the year, you can feel comfortable and confident with the numbers that you're seeing to be able to use to make those decisions. And then the actual, like I said, the numbers themselves are the responsibility of the city. Go to the next slide. And that goes to our responsibility at Green Finney is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. This year we're expecting to issue an unmodified opinion, so that's the best one you can get. It offers reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially correct. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but it's not absolute. We don't look at every single invoice that the city does throughout the year. We use materiality, professional judgment to kind of go through and make sure that everything is materially correct. So we don't go down to the dollar, but just make sure that for the users of the financial statements, everything is accurate. I'll take a look at the general fund. So total fund balance increased $2.6 million in the past year to a total of $13.9 million. A little bit of breakdown on that. The restricted fund balance for victim services is at $25,000. Committed fund balance, including the reserve account, $1.6 million. Assigned fund balance of $1.5 million from the fiscal 25 budget appropriations. And then the unassigned fund balance of $10.8 million a year. Out of that 10.8, that's approximately 63% of the 2025 budget expenditures. The recommendation is to keep a minimum of 16.7% for 2 months. So as you can see there, the city is in a really strong position where you have a lot of cash to be able to handle operations and things as they come up that are unforeseen. A couple of reasons to maintain an adequate fund balance. Cash flows in the second half of the year, property taxes all come in that first part and make up a big portion of revenue. So having that higher fund balance makes sure that you can maintain your spending and have flexibility during the remainder of the year. Anticipated expenditures, flexibility. If you have to issue debt, you can tend to get better interest rates on that, and just cover any shortfalls or anything that comes up. So it's great to see the fund balance that we have, and it's always good to try and maintain that healthy, unrestricted fund balance. All right. Couple changes to the financials this year. Of note, for GASB 87, there were a couple of vehicle leases that the city entered into during the year. And through GASB 87, they are now required to be reported on the financial statements and to show that those transactions occurred. So you'll see those in the next couple slides on the revenue is recorded and then the offsetting expenditure. So in the end, they net out, but now because of GASB 87, they both have to show up to show that transaction. And then GASB 101 for compensated absences, that was implemented this year. Biggest changes is that now includes reporting sick leave that was earned for the prior year for employees that are still working that was not previously reported. And it just helps to better show the potential liability that the city has if people use that sick pay in the future year. But there is no change to that, so if somebody leaves or anything like that, it's not paid out. So there's no change with how it's actually used, it's just a difference in reporting to show that liability. All right. So general fund revenues were $11 million for 2024, which was a 33% increase from 23. The primary reasons for that were rental registration collections went up a pretty good bit, and then parking fees also increased due to the change in the parking contract. So that made up most of that increase. It was 22% better than budget due to higher licenses, permits, and fees. So overall, a good year revenue-wise. 3.6 million in net other financing resources, primarily transfers, and then this also includes about $600,000 of those lease items that were mentioned for GASB 87 that were recorded.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
Where is grant money reflected in here if we receive grants and revenue?
The grant money, let's see, that would be in,
Sorry, Jay, I didn't mean to mess up your presentation.
no, you're good. There weren't a ton of them. That's kind of what I was thinking, that they usually would go in that other revenue
Other finance.
down to the bottom for the 251,000.
And,
So a portion of that would be the,
and one point about grants is that, you know, a couple years ago when we got that $8 million, that's coming in incrementally as we're being reimbursed for it. So it's not gonna book all $8 million at once into a year.
Biggest confusion we had this year was the partial recognition of ARPA dollars, the American Rescue Plan. We recouping those because we spent them, is now recognized. So it's kind of a given.
Thank you.
take a look at the general fund expenditures. They were 11.9 million for 2024. Which was a 15% increase over 23, for primarily because of that vehicle issuance, again, of the $620,000. And then an increase in the personnel costs, salaries, and then the related fringe benefits and retirement and everything around the salaries. And that total was about 2% under budget for the year. If you look at all the governmental funds, so including state and local accommodations, beach preservation fund, local hospitality and tourism, revenues for all of those were about $16.7 million. and expenditures were at $13 million. The net other financing sources of $686,000 is primarily that $620,000 lease that was recorded on there, makes up the bulk of that amount. Taking a quick look at the enterprise funds. The enterprise funds are reported on full accrual accounting. They're designed to essentially run more like a business. So these are going to include the long-term assets and liabilities, where the government general fund tends to focus on current assets. So the water fund increased in net position $171,000 to a total of $2.9 million. And to note, $2 million of that's invested in capital assets. So it's not, so that there's just that about $900,000 or so that's actually in liquid and not used on systems. Sewer fund, net position increased $238,000 to $2.5 million. Out of that, $413,000 is invested in capital assets, and $61,000 of that is restricted. Other items of note: capital assets, $16.2 million. The total capital assets for the year increased $1.7 million from 2023 due to additions of $2.7 million. Offset by depreciation of just under $1 million to get that 1.7 increase. Main additions: stormwater improvements, water main projects, Arctic Avenue redesign, and that leased vehicle that is recorded on there as a right to use asset. All right, long-term obligations, total is $3.3 million, increased $114,000, and that was principal payments of $506,000, offset by $621,000 of the vehicle leases that were added during the year. Out of that $621,000, around $60,000 of those vehicle leases were paid off during '24. And kind of at the bottom, total debt service payments for next year, based on the current items, not adding anything, is expected to be about $567,000 versus the $506. Go back there. And then this shows a little breakdown of the compensated absences to see the difference on that GASB 101 adjustment. Compensatory time, $20,000, vacation leave, $233,000, and then the sick leave of $388,000 is what was added due to that new GASB. So that brings the total this year to $641,000 for what the compensated absence liability is for the city. Okay. All right, we also go through and show the pension on the government-wide statements. So this is the city's proportionate share for participating in the South Carolina retirement system and the South Carolina Police Officer retirement system. Net pension liability for '24 was $6.9 million. A quick note on it: it's not a direct liability to the city, so it's not something that you're looking to have to pay off. All that's showing is the proportionate amount of the liability compared to the whole system that's been earned by employees of the city. So it's not something that somebody's going to come asking for a check for or anything. It just keeps track of what the amount compared to the total is. Biggest thing for the city, down at the bottom, the rates for the FCRS and PORS are 18.56 and 21.24%. So that's the amount that the city actually has to pay into it. That's up 1% from 23, but for 25, it's not changing, so it's going to stay those same percents. And then for 26 and beyond, at least currently, there's no plans for any increases or changes to it. So for right now, it looks like it's going to stay at that 18.56 and 21.24 for what the city will have to pay into it. Last little bit, no single audit was required. Federal expenditures were less than $750,000 for the year. So that's the threshold to have to go through and test that. There was one finding for recording of unrealized gains on investments, where it was recorded in the in the fund balance instead of as a revenue. So we found that over the course of the audit and got it changed, so.
What was
got
that again?
Fixed.
You repeat that?
For the investments, the unrealized gain had originally been recorded in fund balance instead of in revenue. So it threw the opening fund balance off to where they didn't tie from the prior year. And then it had the revenue underreported by that, I think it was around 600,000. But that was corrected, so on the financial statements, everything is good and showing where it's supposed to show. In summary though, unmodified opinion, something like that's not something that's gonna cause a change in the opinion or anything for that. So an unmodified opinion on the statements for 24, and overall, like I said, strong fund balance and strong revenue amounts, and city appears to be in good financial condition, and everything looks good going forward.
Is there any step greater than good?
No.
So we can't be excellent.
Always have to kind of temper down, 'cause there's always the unexpected and hard to say, so. Any questions?
Anybody else?
Otherwise,
No?
I have one.
Go for it.
Do you happen to know what the increase in the beach fund was?
I don't have the specific number,
So
but
contributions to the beach, have a look. We contributed $1 million to the beach fund just in local accommodations taxes, hospitality, we did utility, so roughly it was a roughly $1 million increase. Plus our gains and investment were approximately another $650,000.
That puts us about $11 million in the beach fund.
All right, thanks a lot, appreciate it.
thank you.
If nothing else, guys, we'll take a 15-minute break for the regular meeting, all right?